everyone. Good morning. Sorry that we had to cancel our research meetings this morning, but we're glad you're all home and warm and safe in your houses instead of braving the snow like we did this morning.
Yeah.
The parking lot at Emmanuel was kind of a mess, so I feel like we would have had a good old-fashioned pile-up if everyone had come in this morning. Anyways, Ben and I decided to brave the snow to come in and give you a quick update on some of the things that are going on with the Restorative Justice Research Committee. So I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Yeah, so the point of today's meeting was essentially just to reset the Restorative Justice Committee in terms of looking back at what's happened and then thinking about strategic next steps. And I should just say, kind of to clarify, we've got a lot of important next steps that need to be clarified. We're basically conducting research on 5 separate tracks, which will need to come together by May. Number 1, what's the policy specifically that we're looking for? Number 2, how do we message it effectively? Number 3, how could it be paid for? Because presumably some of this will require some funding. Number 4, who makes the decisions on this? And number 5, certainly the most important piece is how do we organize our people in order to get behind it by the time of the Nehemiah Assembly. So we're going to just, for this video, we're probably going to take a few minutes and just try to give you a quick snapshot of what we would have discussed today. But we will most likely conduct this meeting next week on Saturday for a deeper dive. So Anna, you want to take the policy piece?
Yeah, so the first of those kind of tracks that we want to reset is about policy, talking about the change that we want to see happen. And we really have a lot of work that we need to do if we want to refine that policy change and that policy request before April 10th at our solutions briefing. So we have a couple of next steps coming up to help us refine figuring out what policy we want to see in our Douglas County schools. The first of those is a conference call next Tuesday with Sharon Kniss, and she is the Director of Continuing Education at KIPCOR. So she's the one that works with the organization that did the preliminary training with teachers from Liberty Middle School, and she's going to be talking with us just about what restorative justice practices in schools actually look like and what implementation looks like.
Do you know if she did the training here in Lawrence Public Schools or not?
Her organization did the training. I'm not actually sure if she's the person that facilitated it herself. And then the second next step we have in terms of policy is a phone call on Friday with Keith Hickman, who's the Director of Continuing Education at the IIRP, which stands for the International Institute for Restorative Practices. It's the only school in the United States that actually offers a graduate degree in restorative justice. And so Keith is going to speak with us. He's going to do a couple of different things. The first one that's really important is he's going to talk about the report that we sent out in Justice Matters this week about
the RAND report.
The RAND report, exactly, that talks about the link between restorative justice practices and its effects in schools. And he's going to talk with us about that because his organization actually developed the curriculum that was implemented in the school that was studied.
It's 22 schools in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's going to speak with us about that, and he's also going to talk with us about some potential next steps that he can take with us as sort of a consultant and someone who's an expert in restorative justice in schools. Ben?
And those events coming up have RSVP. They're not events, they're conference calls, right, Anna?
Exactly.
Yeah, so they're going to be conference calls with those 2 folks. Please sign up for those in advance. And all you got to do, wherever you are, dial in and access it. And we'll have a specific spokesperson that's kind of leading the discussion. That's the policy piece that's moving forward. The second one is how do we message what we want? And there's going to be a recording in your email that's probably about 50 minutes long with an interview that we conducted on conference call this last week with a guy named Nat Kendall Taylor from Frameworks. Frameworks does how do you frame your message to be impactful. It was a very thought-provoking discussion. And they have done rigorous studies on how to discuss school discipline in a way that actually doesn't bite you, but actually promotes your campaign. So we're actually going to attach that report to this email. And if you're interested at all in messaging, I'm actually going to suggest that we have a small group that begins now talking about messaging and try to get together. So in your email, you'll see an RSVP for a messaging. It'll be just our leaders kind of thinking about how we craft our message moving forward. I think that's it on messaging. On money, since the research kickoff, we had a group pour over an audit of the school district's finances and their 2018-2019 budget. And it's safe to say there's over $170 million that goes toward USD 497. That's a significant chunk of change, but presumably a lot of that is dedicated. But we actually went through the budget and looked at specific budget categories that could be utilized for anything that might be related to reducing suspensions. And we found probably 5 or 6 categories of items in the existing budget. Now, I also want to point out we have to be looking for what's going to happen at the Capitol, because there's discussions of an additional $100 million being poured into schools this coming year. That would be on top of the 170. Some chunk of that would come down to the USD 497 school district. So presumably this might be a good year to be talking about financing something to close the equity gap that is evidence-based. That's money. Again, needing to continually watch that. Third thing fourth thing is decision makers. We did a power mapping session and listed the people that we think will either influence or decide things related to school discipline. And people were shout out to those folks that did this, very diligent at doing some background research on those decision makers. We came back, we gave a report on each individual one, and then Meredith Lang and Laura Jost, shout out to you guys, we got together and decided that it really made sense at this point to initiate contact with 2 school board members. I want to say, I know one is Melissa Johnson, and the other I think is, Kelly Jones, to start there, because we thought they would be the most open and potentially also influential. And then we kind of thought about second round discussions with some folks. And our thoughts on the meeting themselves with those 2 will be just sort of open-ended, testing the waters, that sort of thing. So look for those meetings coming out. Staff will take responsibility for scheduling them, but we hope that we can have a significant number of people there to hear what the decision-making people are thinking about school discipline. Mm-hmm. I'll turn it back over to Anna.
Yeah, so the 5th thing on our different elements to a successful campaign is really the meat of it. It's the grassroots organizing piece. Yeah. And so, the policy, the message, the money, the power mapping, all those things are really important to doing good research. But if we only focus on those things and we do really great research, but we're not focusing on the grassroots organizing piece, then we're not going to be able to win any great victories for getting these practices in our schools. And so what we mean by grassroots organizing is really just showing up, not just at our Nehemiah Action and not just at research meetings, but at all of our events throughout the year. Those are our 4 organization-wide events, plus what we call a network meeting, which happens at our individual congregations in usually February or March. And so upcoming big events that are really important for not just you to come to, but all of the other folks in your network to be at are your network meeting, which again happens in your individual congregations. If you don't know the date, you can check in with your team leader or your pastor to find that out. And then also the solutions briefing, which is coming up on April 10th. That's a date that should be on your magnet, so you can check out on the magnet for the logistical information there. So you'll come to the solutions briefing, hear research updates from all of the different research committees. And it's really important that you're there. So we're looking forward to seeing you not just at our makeup research meeting, but at these events as well.
And I just wanted to say one other thing. You might be seeing in the paper, we hope, some announcements about a restorative justice discussion that's coming up on the Martin Luther King holiday. We are contacting those who are outside of our network that were in favor, well, I guess, who voted against the jail expansion, Prop 1, version 1.0. We had about 1,000 people that we contacted to say, hey, come, we want to engage you, we want to talk to you about restorative justice. And so on the King holiday at 6
p.m. at 3 different locations around Lawrence, we're going to be having these restorative justice discussions. There'll be a location in West Lawrence, in downtown Lawrence, and in North Lawrence. And if you just go to our website on the events page, there's like full logistical information for all those.
And it's not that I would encourage you to attend those because you've actually been to one of them. You went to a House meeting in the fall, and we're basically just simulating or repeating that same type of House meeting, but inviting people outside of the congregational base in hopes that we can connect with them and involve them in the organizing that's happening around the community. So I just wanted to explain that to you in case you saw that in the paper and thought I should go to this. No, I mean, you can, but no, we would appreciate, you're already part of the network. We would appreciate that you attend your network meeting, any of the upcoming research meetings related to restorative justice, since that's your interest area, and certainly the solutions briefing. So, okay. Thanks for taking the time, and be sure to RSVP and look into some of the reports and other materials attached. See ya.